This presentation was inspired by the Sudanese people that I met while in Egypt. They know that they are the true descendants of the pharaohs. However, the modern Egyptians are darn near ready to fight when the truth of Kemet's African origins is mentioned. I'll address their reasons for this in another video. Today, Sudan, which in Arabic means land of the blacks. You also might want to see my video called Ethiopia and the Gift of the Nile. I'll put the link in the description box. There are a few details that would benefit you to know before I continue this video. Firstly, the Africans of Sudan fought off the Romans that ruled Egypt after the Greeks. Also, Sudan fought off the Arab hordes until the early 16th century. The second detail of extreme importance is that there is a hugely significant difference between the borders of ancient Kemet and Nubia and the borders of modern Egypt with Sudan. Borders in antiquity were not as rigid as they are today. Throughout most of ancient history, the border between these two lands was the First Cataract. In 1899, Arabic Egypt, along with their British overlords, moved the border 168 miles or 270 kilometers south into Sudan. Consequently, land that had been Sudanic became modern Egyptian. From there, the Arabs and their overlords shamelessly began to revise history. Kustu was an archaeological site that was in Sudan before the border was moved in 1899. It is now within the border of modern Egypt. The early civilizations of Kustu had a great cultural influence on Kemet. One of these influences is the concept of divine kingship, which means that the pharaoh was thought of as a divine representative of God. He is Heru on earth. Kemet was an elaboration of the political entities that emerged in the lands south of the ancient border, like Kustu, not a culture that emerged from Asia. The representation of the king as a hawk has a Nubian origin, and the best evidence for this was found in a cemetery in Nubia in 1964 by Keith Seal. This cemetery is underwater today because of the building of the Aswan High Dam that was finished in 1970. However, the evidence supports the conclusion of an up-south origin of Kemetic civilization and Pharaonic rule. An incense burner was found at Kustu that has several images that provide insight into the world of Pharaonic culture. It is generally accepted that the incense burner is about 800 years older than 3100 BC, which is commonly accepted as the date that the two lands of Kemet were united. From the left to the right, the incense burner possesses images of a seret, which is a symbol for kingship that was later borrowed by the Kemites. You can also see a bound captive. Next, the man is wearing the crown that will later be used as the crown of Upper Egypt. The beard is apparent, and so is a flail. Just in front of him is a hawk standing atop a castle, which is a symbol for kingship. If you are ever in Chicago, Illinois, in the United States, you should see the Kustu incense burner for yourself at the Oriental Institute Museum. There are other pieces of evidence that suggest a movement of Pharaonic culture down the Nile from modern Sudan to what is today called Egypt. Gebel Sheikh Suleiman relief that was found in Sudan about 49 kilometers or 39 miles south of Kustu is one of the Sudanic monuments that provides valuable information. On the relief from left to the right, there is a hawk atop a castle, a bound captive who is bound with the symbol for Ta City, land of the bow. And also, there appears to be two birds atop what became the hieroglyphic determinative for city or state. The art features slain enemies, just as it would hundreds of years later in Kemet. Some of the same iconography is featured on the bull palette, like the seret and the hawk. There appears to have been competition for rulership between centralized states throughout the region. These competing states appear to have used the same iconography for kingship, like the hawk and the bull. This indicates that there was an extremely long cultural history that emerged throughout the region, long before the artifacts that we have found. A clear example of this is the similarities between the Bull Palette, which is currently housed at the Louvre Museum in Paris, France, and the Norma Palette, which you will see when you visit the Cairo Museum in Cairo, Egypt. Both of these artifacts are thought to have been used as palettes to mix makeup. The Bull Palette is thought to have been created in the centuries leading up to the First Dynasty, which began when Pharaoh Norma united the two lands. The palette features a fortified city or state with a lion and a vase inside. This indicates an area that is protected by a monarch and has a settled community. At the bottom appears to be a fortified city with a bird within it. It is difficult to determine since the palette has been broken and the whole of it cannot be pieced together. Near the top is a vivid image of a bull killing a man. This symbolizes the king destroying his enemies. The reverse side depicts this bull vanquishing his enemy. The only difference is that the head of the enemy can be seen. This appears to be a foreigner from outside Africa, as indicated by the enemy's hair. The vanquished man has hair quite similar to the Asiatic captives featured at the entrance of Ramses II's temple at Abu Simbel. This same enemy is depicted towards the bottom in a vulnerable position. Towards the center, there are 5 images, all of which are connected to a rope by an arm and fist. The first 2 are hippopotami. The third is an ibis bird as the deity Jehuti, who is most often referred to by the Greek variant Ptah. The fourth is the Heru Horus falcon, and the fifth is thought to be a symbol for the deity Man. The bull palette was found at Nikan, which is currently known by its Greek name Heracompolis. The normal palette was found in the same city as the bull palette. However, it relates to a time after the bull palette. On both sides of the normal palette, towards the bottom, there is a bull ravaging his enemies. It is apparent that these men are the same enemies that are towards the bottom of the bull palette. There is a surek at the top of both sides in the center. And this surek is the hieroglyphic spelling of the name Norma, with the catfish making the sound Nar and the chisel making the sound Mer. The center of the palette depicts a dramatic scene of Norma holding an enemy by the hair with his left hand while holding up a mace with his right hand. He is wearing the headjet, which is the bulb-like white crown of Upper Kemet. There is also a picture of a hawk holding a tool that is forced into the nose of an enemy. This enemy is from a marshland, perhaps near the mouth of Happy, where it flows into the Mediterranean. On the reverse side of the palette, Norma is presented with the Deshret, which is the red crown of Lower Kemet. Before him are 4 standard bearers with an animal skin, a canine, and 2 hawks. Once again, there is a surek with a hawk on it. What follows next is a slew of dead bodies, presented in a way that signifies bodies slain in war. You must see this palette for yourself at the Cairo Museum. Artifacts reveal that even though there may have been rival kings that were competing for dominance, the hieroglyphs and concepts that were associated with Kemet existed long before Kemet came into existence, long before Norma united the two lands. If you look just beyond the smokescreen that was created by Western and Arabic Egyptologists, it becomes apparent that the Nubians of Tasseti and Sudan are the true descendants of Kemet. The absurd claim of a mixed-race oasis emerging out of nowhere in Africa is only anti-Black propaganda. Learn the secrets that were excluded from your history books. Join the Kemet 101 educational tour to Egypt with Dr. Perry Kiles. Explore inside the Great Pyramids of Egypt. Walk in the path of the ingenious Lady Pharaoh, Hatshepsut, and the brave warrior, Ramses II. Experience this archaeological journey and spiritual retreat. Click the link in the description box and join our next Timid 101 educational tour.